Mr. Moulton is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For the United States and China to have a meaningful dialogue for Chinese citizens to understand when the wool is being pulled over their eyes, they have to have access to good information, right? We can't even be on the same sheet of music for having a conversation if one side is living in the dark. And a lot of Chinese citizens are literally living in the dark today. But Mr. Ketchum, in your written testimony, you referred to a Stanford study that found that access to information in itself did not result in Chinese students actively taking advantage of outside information. Only when they were incentivized to do so did they find uncensored info. So given the constant cat and mouse game that organizations like yours engage in with the CCP to provide tools for open internet access, another way to expose Chinese citizens to internet freedom is not when they're in their country, but just when they spend time in societies like ours. Is there any indication that when Chinese citizens who have lived in the United States return to China, they continue to find ways to access the global internet?
Absolutely. Some of the most sophisticated circumvention users in China are those who have spent significant time overseas. And not only because they have learned about the kinds of technologies that are available that they can kind of then maintain access to when they're back in China, but also because they have motivation. They have friends, they have entertainment or news sources they're used to consuming. And when they go back, they don't want to let those go. And so they have not only some knowledge of the tools that can unlock those, but also a really strong motivation to continue to access that. And so when those seeds are planted in folks by, traveling, by studying somewhere else, that's one of the most effective ways to actually ensure that that motivation continues.
It's actually a compelling reason to make sure we still bring Chinese students to the United States, even though we obviously have to be concerned and careful that we scrutinize those applications to ensure that we're bringing Chinese citizens and not Chinese spies. Tell me, what are other ways that we can plant those seeds, as you say, to motivate other Chinese citizens back at home to want to get the truth?
I think it's going to be much more incumbent upon us to understand the particular needs and what is being systematically denied to smaller subgroups than we're used to working with. Normally, from the OTF perspective, we build a really good VPN, and then we expect folks to know how to find it, know how to use it, and basically resume their lives on the global internet as if censorship didn't exist. In China, what we're going to have to do is look at much smaller subpopulations, understand those needs, and then how they are attempting to get information already. Folks in China are very resourceful and figure out ways to get a bunch of the information they need when truly motivated. There are tens of millions of internal migrants who effectively don't have the right hukou for where they live. That's they're systematically denied resources and then also information about that. That's a great population that you could serve important news to, and they already look for it in certain spots. So we need to figure out ways to put the right information in those spots and to take tools that will allow them to access the global internet more fully and meet them where they are already. And that takes a lot more work. That's more expensive on a per user basis than, say, uncensoring a user in Iran or Russia, but it's worthwhile.
I mean, we all have the crazy uncle who gets a conspiracy theory and then, tracks this thing down like crazy on the internet, maybe changes his voting habits as a result, right? I would love to see a more proactive strategy to plant seeds, not of conspiracy theories, but just seeds of the truth in Chinese society. So beyond VPNs, are there other tools that we can use to motivate Chinese citizens to want the truth?
Absolutely. I mean, it'll come down to increased support for the kinds of news and reporting that, frankly, isn't being done in a very good systematic way right now. Reporters are in general, farther away from Chinese audiences than they've ever been. Having isolated the domestic information environment, it's really hard now to do the job of journalism inside of China, much less disseminate it back in. So ensuring that we're supporting good journalism that's coming out of China and then innovative ways to put it back in where folks are actually able to find it is going to be a difficult task, but one that we really need to focus on.
Dr. Cooper, I'm sorry we don't have much time left, but anything to add to this?
I would just say I think it's absolutely critical that so many of the top reporters on China, they, first of all, have been kicked out of China, but to the extent that they're still reporting on China, the Chinese people can't see the reporting. I mean, just the last few days, there's been an important report about what appears to be, some corrupt activity from senior officials associated with major businesses in China. And yet, of course, you can read that, I can read that, but people in China can't. And I think the tools and techniques that we're talking about are the beginning of trying to address that gap.
Well, thank you. I'm out of time. Hard to imagine corrupt behavior from senior Chinese officials. With that ironic statement, I yield back.
Right.